Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning, Assemblyman.
Just before I begin, I just want to first offer congratulations over this past year. The governor has really started to take a national leadership role on the question of climate change. We see that reflected in this budget with a major point of contention last year being the raid on Reggie. That's not in here this year. The governor has responded affirmatively on this, on the Ambrose Channel gasification project, where he very emphatically rejected that project, and of course at that remarkable event at Columbia University that we were both at. I think that was your first day as commissioner.
Great day.
But it was a great day. I'm a graduate of the University of Tennessee, and of course, Al Gore Sr. was my my senator when I was an undergraduate, and his son is the gold standard for climate change. It was a privilege to see our governor up on the stage with him, and it was a privilege to be there with you on your first day as commissioner.
Thank you.
All of that being said, I still have some hard questions for you. So,
please, I would expect nothing less.
Under the Environmental Protection Fund, under the invasive species issue, EPF contains $10 million for invasive species, a $4.1 million increase over last year. And when asked what funding would be used for, the department indicated that specific details were not yet available, with the exception of $1 million for Adirondack Invasive Initiatives, such as boat washing stations and boat stewards, and $500,000 to combat hydrilla in the Croton River Reservoir. In the past, invasive species funds have been used for preventive activities such as statewide education and outreach, and the online invasive species clearinghouse. Only funds identified as eradication grants this year in the sum of $2 million are used for invasive removal. The DEC indicates that this year the entire $2 million will be used only for aquatic invasives. So here's some questions on this topic. New York has become home to hundreds of invasive species. That should be the first thing anyone who is a climate change denier ought to think about. The entire state has been invaded by hundreds of species that previously were limited by climate to the south. These include terrestrial and aquatic species that not only pose the potential to outcompete native species, but also bring an unwelcome financial burden. Areas across the state are struggling to combat the impacts from lakeside communities, such as those that the gentleman to my left, Assemblymember Stec, was very kind to invite me to the Adirondacks this past summer. It was eye-opening, and the communities there, as well as other parts of the state, are struggling to clear fast-spreading water plants that threaten recreational boating. We also have a Southern Pine Beetle infestation on Long Island. Would you please identify the funding in the budget that will help with eradication efforts?
Well, Assemblyman, we have put a priority on invasive species, at least statewide. We've understood that it's a significant impact, not only to the environment, but also to local economies. So the boost of the EPF line reflects we're going to put our money where our mouth is on this. And we're going to work with the legislature, work with our experts to determine how the grants, how the monies are going to be made available. I mean, the front line, the first action has to be on education and prevention. We want to educate the community to ensure that they can do, that they know what they can do to prevent the spread of various invasives around the state. You're right, we have an enormous amount of work going on the department level, not funded by the EPF, to remove Southern Pine Beetle, for example, in Long Island and elsewhere. We're happy to discuss the ways in which these additional monies can be spent, and look forward to working with you on that.
I think we should take you up on your offer. I thank you for indicating an openness and a willingness, because this is a evolving program need that we're still discovering the depth of. We will cooperate as we did with the visitation invitation, and we will be back to you on that.
Great.
Appreciate it. We're pleased, as I mentioned, to see the EPF not going, working against the environment, so to speak, by pulling money, as it did last year, out of RGGI. And instead, the EPF is proposed at $300 million. This is also welcome, and we're grateful to see the governor's leadership and your leadership, because this is really critically important. This increase is based on $120 million in settlement monies,
Right.
and an additional $3 million from the general fund. Is this something that we can identify funds for future years? We're delighted with this year and this very bold re-equilibrium, if you will. This is what we should have been doing all along.
Agreed.
We are nevertheless grateful that we've taken this step forward to equalize the funding with the need. So what are we looking at for future years? Where are you going to get the money next year? Is this a one-shot?
Assemblyman, this is certainly not one shot. $300 million EPF is now contemplated in the financial plan. We expect to draw upon our capital authority to meet a $300 million EPF in future years.
So you will, in future years, maintain this level. That's a commitment we will look forward to seeing being kept in future years. But will the debt service come out of the EPF? Where, if we borrow in the future, where will the debt service for the borrowing come from?
Well, all I can say, Assemblyman, is that the Department of Division of Budget has looked at this, and this is achievable within our capacity, our debt capacity.
I'm not sure that was the answer to the question, but we're concerned that the debt service not come out of EPF if borrowing is used in the future. Just so you understand where we're coming from.
Understood.
Thank you. Shifts to the EPF of projects typically found elsewhere in the budget include items such as river basin commissions this year, the pro-dairy integrated pest management, brownfield opportunity area program, and certain local landfill agreements. Why are these shifts in the budget this year?
These shifts were on aid to localities, and we moved them into the EPF. The EPF was designed to, in part, fund such things as the Pine Barrens Commission and others. Many of the commissions that you just mentioned have similar missions, similar authorities, and it's a natural place for them to be funded through the EPF.
It is good to see new money coming into the EPF. It's not good to see an offloading of other expenses at the same time. So while we like to cheer that the whole number is bigger, in fact, it could be even bigger had these parts of the new responsibility of EPF been kept funded in the way that they had previously been funded.
Understood.
These tend to subtract from the enthusiasm that we just expressed to you.
Understood.
One of the things that will be done is, with the new funding, is land acquisition.
Mm-hmm.
What, if any, steps are being taken to ensure that the state's land acquisitions are distributed equitably or more equitably than in prior years? As you and I have discussed, the Long Island, coastal New York region, and certain of our communities in New York City have historically been dramatically underfunded.
Assemblyman, our approach to land acquisition is guided by the state's open space plan, as you know, which is a statewide view of available land. Our acquisitions over the last year and last few years, frankly, have been fairly well balanced. Last year, we spent, I believe, $3 million on acquisitions in the downstate area, regions 1, 2, and 3, which is more than is even contemplated by the line that's specifically in the EPF on downstate. So we see a number of key parcels downstate that would be helpful for the environment. You and I have talked about certainly one of them, which is at the top of our list. In addition to parkland, there's also acquisitions of wetlands and tidal areas that are important for habitat and for community. So we certainly see downstate resiliency as a very important objective of the EPF to prevent the effects of climate change. And we've talked, quite a bit and experienced these storms over the last few years where, open space is important downstate.
As we've discussed, the corridor, the wildlife corridor that runs through the Bronx, which is the Bronx River that also cuts through the New York Botanic Garden and its sister institution, the Bronx Zoo, is an important thing. I'd like to return to that and further that conversation with some of the local representatives there to protect that habitat in the city as well. But let me ask you, as you know, we had a hearing. Julie was there, Julie Ty was there, on Plum Island. And Senator Laval was kind enough to assist us with that hearing, as well as to provide an opportunity to visit the island. So I would like to again say to you, I think we should put a meeting together, working with the senator, and go and visit the island together.
Sounds fantastic. I'll get the boat. You bring the senator.
So is this on your radar screen?
It is, very much so.
Okay.
Plum Island is obviously an important natural resource for us. We have a long-term objective to make sure that it's conserved. I understand the auction won't happen until 2023, the federal auction until 2023, but we certainly need to keep our eye on it before that, elevate the profile of the island, and see that it's got a place in the state's long view of conservation.